Let me tell you a little bit about Bet Online. It remains your number one spot for NBA, MLB, MMA, boxing. It doesn't matter. Every single prop, every single play, every single point, it's all at Bet Online. When it comes to bets, when it comes to props, everything that you need is at your headquarters for sports betting. That's Bet Online. Head to the website right now, use your mobile device, sign up, get a 50% welcome bonus. Don't forget to use the promo code BLEAV, that's Believe, to get yourself a 50% welcome bonus. Come on, there's no need to hesitate. Bet Online, where the game starts. Down to business. An active lifestyle can cause hemorrhoids. That sucks. Lucky for you, they're south of the border. South of the border is a holistic approach to dealing with the affected area. Go to southoftheborder.com, use code AHOLE, AHOLE, get yourself 30% off. That's pretty rad. And this is not an area of your body you want to put bad ingredients in. Make sure you turn to South of the Border. Southoftheborder.com, code AHOLE.
I hope you're ready to have your mind blown with the greatest health and fitness information on the planet.
Yes, bitch!
Likes You podcast from a new spot, the Austin Fitness Community here in Austin, Texas. That's where the name came from. Josh behind the place here, behind the entire network, was nice enough to let me use it today because my man Giorgio is out actually making money using his cameras and microphones. So I wanted to make sure that I had this guest in because I was actually very excited to have this man here to chop it up. He is a veteran. He is a speed and performance coach. He has a heck of a physique on him and a very, very interesting guy. I follow a lot of the fitness world and all of its tributaries and all of its weird little angles that go on social media. And it's only a handful of people that actually embody a lot of the things that I find very, very favorable. And also what drew me to getting into physical culture. And that is that I've always seen it as something much more than just training and sweating and muscle contractions, that it was a real way of expressing yourself and also finding out a lot more about yourself. And my guest today is someone who I believe, judging by your content, is a fellow who also believes in that, and he is Judd Lienhard. Judd Lienhard. I apologize.
Call me Judge if you want, man. You're on.
Judd is I was thinking about Judd on the way over, like the name Judd. That's a man's name.
It's a weird story. A really quick story. Weird one. My great grandma was in the hospital when I was born. It was my real name's Justin.
Really?
And so they brought me up to her, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna call him Judd."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Yeah, whatever." And then it kind of just stuck.
It is a man's, like, you'll never, like, there's no guy named Judd that's like, can you please stop with, like, it's so overwhelmingly stimulating in here.
I got my moments.
Do you ever see that video of the dudes? It was girls too, but it was like some type of socialist group on call, and people kept raising their hands and they're like, can we stop with the chatter? I suffer from overstimulation and it's just a little bit too overwhelmed. Like, no one doing that's named Judd. It's always like
when
some
I'm in my
cowboy.
truck and no one, so I don't get road rage. I get road whine.
Okay.
It's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my truck and no one can hear me, I whine a little bit like that. So I'm just full
But
disclosure.
you keep it to yourself.
I keep it to myself.
That's,
first of all, I understand how embarrassing it is.
it's very valuable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Tony Soprano. I started rewatching The Sopranos, and I realized he makes so much noise about, like, whatever happened to the quiet, silent type, the strong man, the Gary Coopers of the world. But Tony Soprano bitches and moans all day. All day. He just whines about
I do whine
shit.
a lot, dude. I do whine way too much. But.
What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Army.
Nice, man. Congratulations. Thank you so much for your service.
No problem.
It's been very weird and because I grew up in my grandfather was in World War II, and he was a career Navy man and was very well respected in the United States Navy. And my father worked at the Pentagon, was in Air Force intelligence, and was serving our country during the Vietnam War. Wow. He always likes to let people know, he's like, I was not in the shit. You know, I was working at the Pentagon, but he was, and he devoted a large chunk of his life to the United States military and to the country. And I always had a very deep appreciation for the military, and always knew I would be a good soldier. I'm not like some tough guy, but I love the country. I believe in the cause. I'm good with chain of command. You know, I don't have an ego about that kind of thing. But at the time in my life when I would have been choosing to do that, I was so fucked up, I could barely tie my shoes. And so I look back on it, as like, well, that's just the way the cookie crumbled, and I am who I am. But I also have this weird sense of inadequacy and feeling like I didn't do what I should have done with my life, especially now moving to Central Texas. All of my friends are active or veterans, you know?
I mean, I like to think that I did good stuff and I contributed, but like looking back on it, I feel like I got way more out of the military than they got from me. Because it transformed me, and it really, gave me perspective. So I always look back on it as something that was given to me as the chance to see that stuff, rather than I did this great service to my country. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I kind of had the same feelings when I was young, that, I kind of felt the guilt, you know what I mean? That I needed to do something, because I was kind of late getting in. Yeah. And I was in San Diego partying in 2006 and just was seeing the film of dudes getting blown up. And I'm like, what am I doing, man? My friend said I was crazy. Like, I went down to the recruiting station, the Army recruiting station on the beach. And he said I was literally the first student in 5 years that walked in asking for an infantry contract. Really? Yeah. I was like, well, I just felt so guilty, man. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's very
interesting too that you were in San Diego and you didn't choose to be a Marine.
I actually called this funny story. So I thought about it. My brother's he's a special operator in the Air Force. It was. And he told me, he's like, dude, you're going to be on a boat if you're a Marine, first of all. I was like, yeah, I know. And then I called up the Marine recruiter, and like, I look back, I love him for it. And he's like, well, how many pull-ups can you do? And I was like a bodybuilder. I was like strong. So I was like, that's about 19. He's like, you got to see that to believe it. Yeah. I was like, F you then, man. Just because like I was a young and prideful dude, I'm like, all right, don't talk to me that way. But like looking back, man, I respect the dude. He wasn't trying to sell me some shit. Like, no. He was just like, yeah. No, I respect the hell out of Marines, man. So.
It's a thing too that, and you probably know it in your line of work more than anything. If a guy tells you he can do 50 push-ups unbroken, I was like, no. Well, you did 50 quarter push-ups. Yeah. I'm impressed. Now, I bet you can't do 15 real push-ups.
So to get into Ranger School, I think they might have changed it. You had to do like 55 push-ups or something, right? Which most dudes would be like, oh, I can knock that out. Not the way they make you do it, bro. Right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a complete. So they would tell you straight in, like, you got to be able to knock out 90 push-ups to get those Ranger 55s. Wow. And then you only have to do like 6 chin-ups, which is super easy, but they'll let you hang there. Like, they'll let you hang there and have a conversation, and you just got to go up when they say and down when they say. It makes it 10 times harder.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean, that's actually a really beautiful segue into like I've seen a lot of your content talking about quality over kind of quantity. And with social media, I'm guilty of it as much as anyone. You're not going to get much rub out of deadlifting 315 because any kind of relatively strong person is going to do that, right? So I want to make the videos of me at 175 pounds doing 5 plates, right? Because like, even though I might end up in the hospital, it's going to get more attention, right? But that deadlift's going to look like shit. And, I think that Josh and I were actually talking about it on, I did his podcast last week, and I was saying that it's troubling because I think of like the young man or young woman who is sincere about fitness and doing it for the right reasons, right? And they're committed. You're so beholden to doing things that appear a certain way as opposed to doing things that might be beneficial to you. And I never had that pressure. When I got into fitness, no one gave a shit about what I was doing. I was just some dude in Pasadena. You know what I'm saying? I was just some kid. No one gave a fuck about how much I could or couldn't lift or how many pull-ups I could do. I just was training to be better. Yeah. And I think the quality over quantity thing is very distorted right now because people are watching. And have you had to kind of like make heads or tails of that?
Yeah, a lot of people, because they don't look at my whole profile, and there are clips of me moving around heavyweight, but that's not the center of my page, and it's about movement and education. So I don't like, if I post a deadlift clip, it's everybody deadlifts, like what's the point in that really? So they'll say stuff like, you never hit, did you get that much muscle just doing these movements? And like, no, I didn't, man. I have to lift heavy every once in a while, you know what I mean? But like you said, quality over quantity, you know what I mean? And then like movement quality. And I feel like we get caught up like chasing numbers on a bar, and instead of being able to find a way to express that strength in real life. Right. You know, I'm not one of these, maybe I'm becoming that. I don't want to, this functional movement guru that thinks you never need to lift heavy weight, or that you can't just sit down and push real hard on a machine and get value from that, because you absolutely can.
Right.
But we have to incorporate other stuff.
Well, and I always think about it this way, because you and I are the same age, I think. I'm going to be 45 in 2 days. And I'm a big believer in that you have to, the word functional it's so vague now. And I think that people fall into that trap, and it's like, but it's really about like being better at life. I go, yes, but why are you doing this? Be honest with yourself. Yeah. So you want to look better. And I get that.
There's an element to that too.
That's awesome.
I would train differently if I didn't care at all how I look.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
For sure.
And I always try to like pull away the curtain. I was like, well, look, if you really want to be lean and muscular, like this is what you need to do. Now, that being said, if you don't want to end up like me, who has trouble getting out of bed in the morning at 45, who still wants to do the work day in and day out to look better and to perform better, you got to take this stuff into consideration.
Yeah. And you don't need a ton of anything, I think, is what people, they see me doing this. Like, how do you have time for all this stuff? It doesn't take much time.
Yeah.
One of my biggest things is like, I'm doing a lot of stuff because it's so time efficient. I don't have to spend time working on every little piece. I can do a couple movements for a few minutes of workout and then move on in a structured way that allows time. But we also don't need to do 30 sets of chest to work out either. No. You know, I mean, that's science. I mean, it's been proven. You just fluff volume at some point. And if you want to do that, that's great, man. You know, like I like to get a pump too and, you know, do chest for an hour and a half. That's cool. But then if you're complaining about a bad back or you're getting hernias and knees are going out, it's like, well, then you can't have it both ways, man. Right. You know, you got to dedicate some of that pump time to functional time.
And the athlete suffers the most, I think, because he or she is in wrestling or they're in track, and then they start training like someone who is a physique competitor. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's cool. I get it. Like
they can get away with that for a while because they're young, right?
Exactly.
And they're active. And but they can't. Once they hit like 27, 30, things start to catch up.
I mean, as a guy who's pretty passionate and I would say, I never like to say this term because then people distort it into thinking I'm saying I'm good. Because compared to people who are good, I'm not very good at all. But I'm very competitive in jiu-jitsu and certain other combat sports, and you realize really quickly how little your 45-inch chest and six-pack matters when you're 45 seconds in. Like that's how, true. In fact, how much it can honestly be. Like more muscle mass is more oxygen needed, and
muscle mass is a big liability. I try to tell that to people.
Yeah,
you know. And people in the military, I'm like, listen, dude, it's not, you be a bodybuilder later. Like it's a liability. Yeah. It takes oxygen, it takes energy, creates waste products. It's heavy. Like there's a reason we aren't genetically just walking around looking like bodybuilders.
Right. Because
it helps our survival. So we have to remember that. I'm muscular because I like bodybuilding. I don't pretend like this is the most functional version of me possible. I want to be open like that.
Right.
Like I am not the optimal version of myself right now, but I like bodybuilding. So
but I'll push back on that though. You're the optimal version of yourself if you're a bouncer or if you're private security, right?
And even then, I mean, I don't know, shoulder mobility, things like that. Okay. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
But and also like I would need more martial arts training and stuff. Like I haven't done that in a long time.
I'm just saying like if you're personal security for a celebrity, being able to move people out of the way and end things quickly, like you probably got a pretty good setup.
But even then, like in martial arts, like using leverage and torque and stuff like that can end things quickly too.
Yeah.
And if you're not a bigger guy, you don't stand out. So a liability of being personal security is being a big guy because they're easy to identify.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to harm a celebrity, once you identify where their security is, you can isolate that target. So being a big guy is also a liability. So it's just, and then like fitness, you brought up a good point. Fitness is relative to the events that you're wanting to partake in, right? Like if I was trying to be a marathon runner, I'd be incredibly unfit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, you and I would be, you probably do better than, even though you're much bigger, you probably do better than I would because you devote more time to just functional, like movement patterns. But it goes in both directions because I see so many people struggle with this where they're overweight. That's the kind of main reason most people get into fitness and really commit to it is like they don't like the way they look in the mirror and they want to change that. Okay. And I like to get that out on the table because some people are ashamed of that or they think it's bad.
Yeah.
And I go like wanting to look better is fucking totally cool.
Gives you
And
confidence and everything.
obsessing about it is maybe a problem, but wanting to look better is not vain. It's just
absolutely right, yeah.
how life is, you know?
Right.
But so they're like, I'm going to go jogging. I'm going to do the LA Marathon. I'm going to do I'm going to do these things. And then they put in so much work, so much effort, and they devote a lot of time. And they are like, I just crossed the finish line. I'm not sure I look any better. And so that aspect of it does make me go, oh man, I wish I could kind of get through to people. But at the same time, there's so many people who devote their entire life. They're willing to do dangerous levels of drugs, dangerous types of dieting. I see 19-year-old dudes who have no libido. I see 20-year-old girls who have no period because they just got to get on the gram.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, and then they can't run a continuous mile. They literally can't complete.
And like with my realm, they have no athleticism really.
Right.
They do the same structured movements over and over again. They get good at those movements. But if it's anything unplanned or multiplanar, or multidimensional or power or speed related or rhythm related, they suck at all of that.
Yeah.
So these people are shredded and have muscle, but they try to do something athletic looking. I'm not gonna say her name. There's an Instagram chick and she's shredded, and she had a speed day. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this. It was the most atrocious thing I've ever seen.
Right.
And she looked like she was the most unfit person.
Yeah.
But no rhythm, no bounce, no coordination. Like they're not complete.
Yeah.
They have to, as long as they're aware of that. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I think that there's a component of it, a huge component that's self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And that's been the funniest thing for me to see in martial arts gyms and academies is like sometimes the craziest one to me, and it's not like I'm talking shit because any of these guys and gals would beat the fuck out of me, but you see a world-class kickboxer, let's say, come in for the first time and do like a wrestling class, and they're dead, like a couch potato.
Yeah,
and
different skill.
And vice versa. You see you see that like world-class grappler and he hits the bag for 3 minutes. He's like, I got to go home.
That's why mixed martial arts is cool. I mean, you have to train in multiple disciplines.
Yeah, it really
Everybody's
is.
like, you'd be a great fighter. I'm like, no, I wouldn't. Like, I would be smoked, bro.
Yeah.
Like, no, I wouldn't.
And the human body is amazing in how it can adapt, but also in how compartmentalized it is. I always use the example of Lance Armstrong, maybe the greatest endurance athlete we'll ever see. The wattage he would complete on a bike for prolonged periods of time, it's utterly stunning. And he got in retirement, he got into running, and he was like mediocre.
Yeah, somebody like I knew some people that beat him or something. Were like real proud of
it.
it.
And you're like, whoa, wow! It really is so fine tuned to like, And I wonder for people who, a guy like me is a perfect example. I get into your content, and I start to realize, like, I got to get back into working on power development, speed. Movement patterns, staying outside of like these one plane of movement so that I don't get too kind of bogged down and working on my posture. But there is a level of specialization that comes with every certain thing. For the biggest one I see is when I started to really take into consideration performance more than my body 4 or 5 years ago when I was like, if I'm going to go and enter a tournament, whatever the discipline, like I'm not worrying about my six pack right now. I'm going to worry about like speed and injury prevention and things like that.
Yes.
And I started working with a performance coach, strength and conditioning coach, Nick Curson, Speed of Sport out in the South Bay in LA. And he's working with UFC fighter. I mean, he's working with NFL players. He's legit, right? And how much the simplest stuff, bounding, plyometrics, where you're like, well, I can jump, therefore I can do this. And I realize like how much you need to have a thorough understanding of what you're doing, or you're going to end up in the ER. And from your professional point of view, like how do you promote the idea of doing these things without giving the message that this is easy?
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I mean, I've had reels in the past where I try to communicate the slow progression into it. They get lost on the page. And people are always asking me, how do I do this? So I'm planning to try to release some stuff to try to teach people how to ease into this stuff safely. But they have to be patient. I think everybody just wants to go out and sprint and jump.
Yeah.
And first you have to get the mobility and the posture. get the limb sequencing down, and that's kind of boring stuff to some people.
Yeah.
And then when they start doing the drills, it's not going to look like I look when I do them right now. It's going to look kind of goofy, you know. But it's like anything else. If you get into an octagon, you're going to look goofy rolling around.
Shit, yeah.
And people don't want to go through that goofy, uncomfortable stage. They want to go straight to the I look cool and feel good stage, right? And they don't want to do stuff in public. I totally get it. So it's just going to be a hard transition for people.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that isn't made enough. Is that I watched my daughter play around with her friends, and these were male friends at the time, and they were really good at baseball for little kids, you know. And my daughter, who has never had any formal baseball or softball, she's just at 9 years old was perfectly happy to get out there and look like shit.
Yeah.
Like she didn't give a shit. She didn't care.
That is the saddest point in a kid's life when they start to have self-awareness.
Right. And all of us humans, adults,
yeah,
that's the number one thing that keeps people from even, let's say you're overweight. The number one thing keeping people from going to the gym, it's not the machines, it's not the free weights, it's the fear of going in there looking like an idiot. Because you're like, all the meatheads and all the ripped chicks are going to laugh at me. Which is not true, but that's what's in people's heads.
Two things, like people pay way less attention to you than you think they do.
Especially they're narcissistic people.
Yeah, they're always concerned about themselves. Yeah. And in my experience, the gym setting is one of the least judgmental settings you'll ever find because everybody's a different spot. Everybody has their insecurities. I think it's not what people think it is.
Yeah.
Like bodybuilders are usually emotionally damaged people, but they're not like normally these pompous dickheads. Yeah. And I'm sure that exists. Most bodybuilders you talk to started bodybuilding because they had a rough childhood. They were insecure. It's a form of protection. That's a community they feel safe in. It's not like I'm going to go do steroids, get big, so I can bully people. Right. And then these people walk around and they think they're so non-judgmental, and they're the most judgmental people in the world because they see a dude with muscle and they instantly have this preconception of what that person's going to be like.
Right.
And in my experience, it usually can't be further from the truth.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and I spent decades working out at Gold's Gym in Venice. And so you'd be hard pressed to find a gym that was just collecting more, God tier bodies. Right.
Yeah.
And I never saw someone who had their picture on the wall, in the corner clowning.
Never.
It doesn't happen.
They're the
it's
nicest,
always some
most
chick with a
people.
fupa and some fucking asshole who thinks he's strong.
The funny thing is too, the most hate I get isn't from professionals in their sport, like bodybuilders or power lifters or martial artists, or speed people. It's from the people that are like these weekend bodybuilders, you know what I mean? That have read a few magazines and think they know. Like my training is very different for the most part than bodybuilding training. I do some bodybuilding too. Actual professional bodybuilders are very accepting of me and positive with what I'm doing.
Right.
Because they understand that their discipline isn't for everybody. Right. And that there's more truths than just their truth. And then powerlifters are the same way. Like I rag on bench press. First of all, I don't hate bench press. But it's like when that's all you do, you know what I mean? You got to do other stuff, man. And I work with powerlifters, and they're some of the most intelligent, positive people, and they never give me shit for not loving the bench press.
When you live on the fringes, like real competitive powerlifters do, when you're a woman who's deadlifting, 500, 600, like these high level powerlifters, you live on the fringes like that, you know what you're talking about.
Dude, I learned it's so
the stakes
complicated.
Are so high.
They seem like such simple lifts, like the back squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. They are very complicated. The bench press is an extremely complex lift.
Yeah.
Like any little thing goes wrong,
And that's been my big problem with, I hate to do this because I know it's got a lot of people off the couch, but that's been always my biggest problem with CrossFit is that it takes wildly complex stuff. And then they're like, let's do circuit with it.
Yeah. Let's see how many reps we get. You've been doing this for a week. Let's see how many reps you get in 20 minutes when your heart rate's 180.
Yeah.
And then you're 40 years old and then go and do a bunch of box jumps and some kipping pull-ups.
Yeah.
That seems like, to me, like anyone would know that's incredibly unsafe. And I just feel like the founders of CrossFit didn't intend it to turn into what it has turned into. It's like the Olympic lifts were these very complex. It's a skill that
it's an Olympic sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same with like hang clean and then football programs. Like that is a version of a clean, which is a very complex lift that you need mobility and specialized training for. And you get these kids that don't have the mobility, they don't have the training. And then CrossFit's even worse. A 40-year-old guy that hasn't lifted weights and within 2 weeks you have him do snatches.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man, that's just irresponsible.
Right.
It's not CrossFit. Like the concept is awesome. It's the implementation of it.
Sure.
It's just not appropriate for most people.
And I think that goes for a lot of stuff with fitness. When I see nutrition, it's the concept is I think very sound, but then the way it gets practiced, that's always been my rub with American politics.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
everyone rags on, the government's this, and I go, yeah, but it's not what's on paper. How it's practiced
Yes, so
and this isn't a partisan statement. It's both sides of the aisle. How it's practiced. If you really were to like look at the Constitution and really how this is supposed to work, it's pretty beautiful.
Dude, this is my biggest fear. Like I have these images or what's like something called a mass method, right? It's kind of my theory on how to train is like 20 years, this thing's going to catch on and be like a CrossFit. And I'm going to be looking back. I'm like, that is not what I wanted it to be. Right. Now it's like this cult and people are hating on other forms of working out if they do mass method. And I'm like, that's not what I wanted it to be. Like it's supposed to like take all like the best aspects of everything and be welcoming and inclusive. It's not supposed to be like, do it this way and all other ways suck kind of thing.
Right. And as someone who's trying to make a living doing it, and now in this modern world, you don't have a choice. You're doing it online, like at least promoting,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
How do you deal with, because I think it's probably even harder for someone like you than it is for just like the standard personal trainer who wants to help people look better, right? How do you deal with people who are going to see, certain like one leg bounding exercises or band work where you're working through like really extreme ranges of motion, and the guy who's doing 3 sets of 10 is gonna flame you online, right? Like that's so stupid. They're going to make a meme about it. How do you deal with that without writing a fucking Bible back to the guy? And then you're like, well, what am I doing? This is
I went through that phase. Yeah. So like in October I had like 3,000 followers, right? Now it's like 450 or whatever. And it's like, I went through all the phases, of getting mad at people going back and forth, like reacting rather than responding to trolls. I wasn't used to trolls.
Right.
And now I just see them so often. I try to use every troll, and I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Every troll comment as an opportunity to calmly inform people that will read that comment, not the troll himself, because the troll himself is never going to learn.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't want to learn. They don't want to open their eyes. So the people that are on the fence reading the comment, that's really who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
It's not him. I mean, they're never, so there's people that are going to think what I do is garbage, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And I take testosterone like I'm over 40, man, and some of my muscle mass is due to testosterone for sure. But it's not when they say, oh, that's, first of all, I've been lifting since I was 14, and until age 40, I was completely natural, and I was like 245, 8%, never done a steroid in my life. And even then people accuse me of doing steroids. So it's like, people that are considering starting testosterone, it's like, first of all of the work you did prior to testosterone is going to get thrown out the window, because people are going to credit every ounce of your progress to anabolic steroids.
Right.
No matter how little you do. And even if you stop, well, you did them once. So you have an unfair advantage. Like we're competing on some level.
Here's the thing that bothers me. And it gets back to the same thing where I said, I never saw really great physiques talking shit in the gym. No, I'm open about you being on TRT. And I've never had someone who has either high level performance or high level physique question that.
Same.
Because
natural dudes too.
All those people, regardless natural or not, all those people with great bodies, they know that, it helps, especially for an old fuck like me.
Yep.
But you could take all the gear in the world, and if the work ethic, if the discipline isn't there, it's like, it's fucking meaningless, So
people, I hear this a lot. See, there's this one study, and it was a 12-week study, and one group did steroids and didn't work out. One group didn't and did, right? And over the 12 weeks, the anabolic group gained twice as much muscle. Yeah. So they've extrapolated that one study to mean like you gain more muscle using steroids than working out, right? It's taken out of context though. So yes, when you get on anabolics for the first time, you're going to gain muscle quickly. Yeah. More quickly than a natural person lifting weights. But you're telling me that those two groups of people, let's say we go out 5 years, and those guys that took steroids, they just continue to gain muscle, not working out. And then the natural group that lifted progressively in a responsible way continued for 5 years. You're telling me that the natural group wouldn't be way stronger and bigger. Yeah. I know personally that's bullshit.
Well, of course, there would be no such thing as bodybuilding if you could just take drugs. And we're seeing that with Ozempic.
It's insane.
If there was a way to be jacked without training, guys, everyone would be jacked.
They're dudes like literally like, that take way more than me, like house dads, and they got bellies and look like shit, man. And then also it does not help with athleticism. No. I have to prepare more for an athlete because I have more muscle. And another reason I don't want people to accredit it to steroids, because then it's dangerous, because then they can think they can take steroids and just start lifting heavy and jumping around. Like your tendons will snap in half, bro. Like that muscle is a big liability.
Yeah. Especially if you're young and you get on gear. I try to warn guys against that it's like, if you know anything about cars, imagine taking like a board and stroke Chevy 350 and putting it in a stock VW bus.
That's a great analogy.
The rear end and they're gonna fucking torque off right immediately. As soon as you hit that pedal, the whole thing's gonna fall apart.
This has probably happened to me 5 or 6 times in the last decade, where a dude will come to me wanting to get on steroids, and I say, okay, here's what you should probably start with if you want to do it. Go see a doctor. You know, they never do, or whatever. And then I'm like, hey, be very careful, because you're gonna get strong and you're gonna want to push the weight and you're gonna tear a tendon. And they always tear a tendon. And I'm like, bro, I'm like, I fucking told you, man. Yeah. Like, I told you.
Warned you.
I warned you, bro.
Yeah, it's just more horsepower without working on the chassis. You know, it's a strange thing. And enough, I mean, because we could sit here and like bemoan about all the negative aspects of like the modern fitness world. And there's plenty of stuff, you know. But one of the things that I think is pretty beautiful is that, I'm sure you were like me, that, you know, you said you've been lifting since you were 14 years old. I've been lifting since I was a teenager, 20-something years, and was really into it, really like became passionate about when I saw, especially when I got clean, I saw it as like this other way to enhance my ability to be positive, to grow, to be, you know, pardon the pun, but to be anabolic in every way, not just muscle, but I was doing something for myself, and no one was telling me to do it. No coach, no mom and dad, no judge. I was doing this voluntarily.
These parents discourage their kids from getting into bodybuilding. I understand the risk, but it's like, well, your kid is working on themselves and forming discipline and habits. Like, don't discourage that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Justin Harris, when he was on my show, and he's coaching top level bodybuilders, he said, you know, it's silly. The bodybuilding's silly. Like, grown people in bikinis.
We break it out really.
With fake tan on.
It's not really a sport. But I love bodybuilding.
But if you're good, you get on stage and like really are a competitive, but you can do anything because
it's so hard.
Being your size at 1,200 calories for the last couple of weeks and still getting in there to do cardio, it takes. It shows like you can do anything. Like,
it was when I used to compete in bodybuilding when I was younger, and the preparation for the show was the most daunting thing, and it built so much discipline in me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is. So I don't consider bodybuilding a sport.
I don't either.
But it's an art, and it's incredibly hard. Yeah. And those guys that get up there are incredibly disciplined. And put in a ton of work. It's
beyond what people even imagine, because it's 365 days and 24 hours. Like, your sleep, what you choose to do for your rest, when you're Netflix and chill, even that has to be completely monitored.
Talk about planning and structure.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's impressive.
It's so crazy. So when you see the Mr. Olympia, you go, well, that's insane, that body. But man, that's impressive.
Because I see those dudes sitting down eating that food, they look so miserable, man. Like, that's what people don't understand. Like, you can take all the steroids in the world, you have to get the food in, and they just sit there and they look miserable, you know. Then they do it, and they do it though.
And they do it. And it's because that's what makes their heart pump. But, you know, like, one of the beautiful aspects of it in modern fitness industry is that when you and I were 16 and we were into it, it's like, okay, you had Flex magazine, and maybe you could go find like a book, you know, Arnold's Encyclopedia or whatever. I had Dorian Yates' book, The Blood and Guts. I had the Blood and Guts book. I had Arnold's book and stuff. And I would just take in information. But now, not only can you get this wealth of information at your fingertips, but you can kind of connect with regular people, right? It's not just PhDs and bodybuilders that are disconnected from you. It's like there's this world where people can get into connection.
It is pretty cool.
And that aspect of it, I think, is really awesome, you know?
I went through this period, like, when a couple reels went viral, and I went from like 2,000 to 30,000 followers, and like the DMs flooded in, you know? And just, I would get them, and I'd be up all night because these people would have issues and they needed help, and you couldn't not answer it, you know? Right. And I'd fall asleep with my phone on my chest. Like, it's not what people think it is. Like, it's like, oh my God, these people need help. I got to help them. You know, like, I have the answer to this, you know, like, I can help you, dude. And it's like one after another. But it's really cool though, you know, and you do feel connected to people in a way. And like, you know, I got to like just say what's up to some of my idols growing up that would just send me a DM. And I'm like, oh my, I like freak out, you know, I'm like, this is Ed Cohn. Yeah. Like I grew up like idolizing you, bro, you know, like, and it's really cool. And they're like genuine, down to earth, like nice people, you know? It's like, man, that's so cool. Like, it is. So there's a cool aspect too. Like, it's definitely double-sided.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like, I always try to play that balance of appreciation, but at the same time, like, you know, it's so, in every facet of life, it's so hard to build things up in a beautiful, positive way, and it's so easy to destroy things. It takes
so
few trolls to just demolish everything.
True. My dad used to always say, you can tell the truth 10,000 times. You tell one lie, you're a liar.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of like the same thing. It takes one thing, and then that's what you focus on.
In this world, in like the Austin area, it's like chock full of fitness people and veterans, and certainly it's become the haven of jiu-jitsu. It's like the hotspot of the whole world, but it's also like this new hub of comedians.
Yeah.
And any comedian worth his or her salt will say, like, I can have 4 nights in a row where I crush. And there's that one set where that was kind of shit, and you're like, fuck, your whole career's rocked,
true, man. Yeah,
like,
that's so true, dude. You got to be so careful in there too with what you say, and you know what I mean. You want to be yourself, but you got to be measured in your responses. You know what I mean?
I've been just beating this dead horse for so long. Now, Josh is probably one of the people in person that has probably tired of hearing it. But I say, like, myself included, people get so obsessive about their like perfect training split, the rep range and everything, and no one talks about diet. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, if we're talking like high level performance and looking in the mirror, like how you want to look, that's like so much more of it.
I have my theories on diet. I have stayed away from it on purpose because it is so immensely contentious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People have their opinions. There is some conflicting science. I mean, just like training, but diet, people get bent out of shape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I try to keep it simple, but yeah, people have their theories on diet, man. And if you're a low carb guy or a keto guy, or you're a high carb guy, or you're a vegan, like, people are passionate about their diet. It's like their religion.
I feel like, because you're totally right. And it's to the point that you can't say anything, even if you're just giving out free info to help people.
Gotta be careful.
People get fucking angry, and I do think that it's because, much like with politics, people think that the way they like to do things is now their identity.
It's a confirmation bias. Yeah,
it's like, it used to be, hey, I really do well high fat, low carb, and so you eat 300 carbs, you look great. I don't give a shit, but this is. Just letting you know, I really enjoyed, like, I just read Dan Duquesne's book, and it changed my way I look at carbs. And you're like, oh, cool. Fuck. Now people have like stakes in their Twitter, profile,
it's
and it's like, or like a leaf, because it's like plant-based warrior, and it's like, whoa, like.
Plant-based warrior. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
like, why is it?
So what happens is we become isolated in this modern society, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to communicate without being face to face with people, and it's easy to live without needing a community all around you. So we become isolated. So I don't want to get too deep into psychology, but people need a tribe. They need an identity, and that is just one outlet to that identity. So the way you work out, what politician you follow, what you eat. You form an identity around that, and then that you become an identity warrior where you fight for your cause, and it gives you a purpose, and you have to feel like your way is not just best for you, but it's best for everyone, and every way else is trash, because it gives you a sense of justice and importance.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people overlook the fact that the Homo sapien is a very communal animal.
Oh yeah.
Like, we are not good as isolated lone wolves. We need tribes. Like, we absolutely thrive in a strong tribe.
One of the best books I ever read was called Sapiens, actually.
Yeah.
And it explained like how language and gossip and religion is what let us take over the world. Because before, if you get a group of, I think it's 130 people, those groups have to splinter because there's not enough commonality to keep that group together. But then when you have a religion, because you can talk to each other, like you start worshiping some tree, and then the tribe over there, you can go over there, and then you guys worship the same tree. And you can have nothing else in common, but you worship the same tree.
Yeah.
And then the group that doesn't worship the same tree, that's not just somebody that we fight over. We fight now, it's an ideological fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's allowed people to take over the world is language and community, and expanding the communities and growing them bigger and bigger. And it's a super interesting book. I'd recommend anybody.
I agree. It was one of those books that 20 pages in, thought was too heady for me.
Same.
And I would end up feeling like shit because I'm dumber than I thought I was. And 200 pages in, I was like, I can't put it down.
And my other book, Righteous Mind, is that way too. Like the first 2 chapters were
yeah.
very obtuse, and then all of a sudden it's just like, bam, this is like, it just talks about like 5 moral pillars and stuff like that.
Well, speaking of 5 moral pillars, I was recently checking out some of your content, and you're talking about this idea of, because I think, like I would imagine you are expecting of this idea that people are going to turn to your content. By the way, Judd Lienhard on Instagram, that's probably the best place, right, to find like a central hub.
Yes.
JUDDLIENHARD.
That's good, brother. Nice
Thank
work.
you. Thank you. I try my best. Well, after fucking up your name in the beginning of the intro, I thought I'd do my best to make up for it. But, you know, I think most people go there and they see really buff, giant guy who is a good athlete, and I want to see more of that. But, you know, the more and more I got into it, I saw this content that was really about the development of human, the development of the person inside and out. And I hammer that home all the time is that, you know, of course, dude, I wanted to look like an action hero when I was a kid. And that's why I got addicted into fitness. But the best life lessons I've learned about motivation, about self-control, because I realized, I can squat pretty good. I'm good at this, and I put in a lot of work. But I'm not going to put that fourth plate on because I have self-control and self-aware. And like, there's so many things that I carried over into into the real world outside of the gym. And you're big on that kind of content. And was that always the way you were? And then also, how did you develop that ability?
I mean, I love, you know, working out, obviously, since I was a kid. But, you know, I'm more interested in writing and the human experience. Like, that's my passion, you know. And, like, I'm good at exercise. I know a lot about it. I can talk about it all day. And that's kind of my end, to talk to people about being people, about the world, how they view the world. You know, and your physical fitness has to be an expression of the complete human. That can't be your one identifying factor. You have to be a complete human being. You know what I mean? So, you know, you have to have a spiritual side, or, you know, or a moral side, moral compass. You know, you have to learn how to break the world down and see it and take accountability and be resilient. You know, I mean, that's being a human being.
Right.
You know what I mean? And usually the people that are in shape in the gym are better at that, you know, because to be in shape at the gym, you have to have a structure in your life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people, like you said, they can use working out to help create a structure, to have patience and tenacity, because you're not going to lift weights and get big overnight. It's a long, grinding, grueling process. And a lot of it, no one's going to see. You know what I mean? You know, you have to be able to deal with pain, you know, and setbacks, and, you know, look at yourself in the mirror and understand that, like, things aren't working the way you want to look, and keep going.
Patience. You brought up the patience too, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of metaphors there, you know.
You grind for 4 weeks and you're like, I really can genuinely say I don't look any different. And to be able to go more, exactly, you know, like that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing.
People that aren't in shape, man, I don't want to be prejudiced against them, but it's like, it's a sign that they're not diligent and they don't see things through.
I agree, but I will also throw out this twist on it, though. I think in 1975, when we were kids, when we were 5 years old, right? Your Little League team had one fat kid, right? Okay, but that was kind of a sign of lifestyle. Nowadays, it's genuinely difficult not to overeat. When you talk about how overscheduled at any age we are, and then how highly palatable and convenient it is to find calories at any place in the world, or sorry, at least in this country, in North America, you can find calories within a half a mile of you anywhere in this country.
They make the serving sizes bigger and bigger.
And it's impossible to undereat fill in the blank fast food or convenience food. It's so highly palatable, and it's so calorically dense.
And it's a marketing thing. They learned what tastes good, and they don't care really, and they shouldn't care. That's capitalism. Like, I got it, but
so I do think that I agree with you. I was just saying to my wife the other day, we went to like a couples event date thing where there was other couples there. They were around our age, and I said, "Look, I know I'm not 1976 Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I don't understand how you, as a man at any age, can look in the mirror with tits and a belly and be like, I'm good. Things are okay." But
and Austin is one of the fitter cities too.
Yeah, for
it's
sure,
crazy,
for sure. But I don't want to sound like I'm talking outside of on both sides of my mouth. I do think with how fucking crazy stressed we are,
that's
all
absolutely
of us,
the truth,
because of just like the way that we've been pulled apart, and from the second we wake up to the second we go to sleep, regardless of what you do for a living, you're just going, and you have no time to just get in touch with the world around you, and the availability of these super highly palatable foods. And so you have this, like, I'm already eating to be overweight, and on top of that, absolutely am so frazzled and anxiety ridden. I'm not going to go to the gym right now. I'm just going to
just being
take
stressed
this
alone.
20 minutes of just like,
and just being stressed alone, elevated cortisol makes it harder to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, you're totally right, man. That was a little unfair of a statement for me. And it is very hard for people, and they get so many conflicting messages, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's really, when you boil it down, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? Like the low hanging fruit, stop doing the easier things that you can do that make a big difference in a hurry, or they think they have to spend hours a day in the gym to get in shape. And, they just don't know.
Right.
And so I do feel bad. I feel like they're lost,
right. No, yeah, for sure. And
they think the smoothie is healthy for them, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
And then you get, then you get the asshole who I just want to strangle them. You get the assholes who are then shoving that down their throat. And it's like, lots of times it's a guy who never was fat to begin with, like with a man bun.
Yep.
Or the yoga chick, the yoga holistic chick. I was like, that chick's been size 0 her whole life.
That's so true. Even somebody that's like in good shape, unless they take a year off and get fat.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they can get back in shape really easily. But somebody that's been fat for 30 years, they are genetically, their genes have started expressing themselves differently. So they're different genetically than that person.
And metabolically and also just psychologically.
Everything.
If you and I, if you and I got heaven forbid, a car accident, our legs are shattered,
so
right?
easy like that.
6 months later, we're good, right? Like just because of the patterning in the brain, it's like, no, it's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to grind.
It is true. It gets really hard when people have been overweight for 30 years. They might be able to see 8 weeks of progress.
Yeah.
But, and that's why I don't like these 8-week programs with goals, because it's about habits, because it doesn't change anything, or these like counting calories. That's not sustainable. Or your point system. Yeah, you're going to lose weight. It's counting points, but then you obsess over your points. You can't do that your whole life.
Yeah. I don't like when people go to war with food.
Yeah,
I was like, it's beautiful. It's food. Like, let's not get
this compromise. Like, I'm going to skip this so I can have this later. It's like,
there is a thing though. You're totally right. And I whether it be on this podcast or to my clients on Patreon and stuff, I always say, like, if I have you counting calories and just doing like really rigid macros, you're gonna fucking hate me and you're not gonna do it. You're gonna fail. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's amazing. Some guy I'll train goes from 20% body fat to 12% body fat. And I'm like, okay, now we got to start counting calories. Yeah. So I do I like when people open up about the fact, like, there's levels to this shit. Yep. And sometimes for you who's 40 pounds overweight, like, don't get into the, I don't like when extremes dictate the norm, right?
That's
when
so true.
When a girl who's 35% body fat and she's, I'm not talking about fat person. I'm just like normal person who's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I don't like the way I look. Mm-hmm. Don't be doing a Bikini Pros lifestyle, because it's not only unnecessary, it's counterproductive.
Well, what's crazy to me is those not to pick on Bikini Pros, but certain trainers, they can't change how they train people.
Right.
They can't look at each person and be like, I can't train you like a bikini competitor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we need to focus 45 minutes on your glutes today. This woman is 40 pounds overweight, man. She needs to do a total body workout, build muscle all over. Like, you can't, why are you having her doing curls for 30 minutes? You know, why are you having her starve herself, like you would a straight competition diet, which even the competitors who are disciplined hate. You think this woman's going to like adhere to that?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not. How about you get her to stop drinking apple juice first?
Yes.
Yes.
Like,
or
eat
go
an
to
apple
instead of the light popcorn instead of the full like baby steps.
I couldn't agree more. And I have to stick up for the boys. For one, I know a lot of guys get trashed a lot nowadays. And guys, there's plenty of ways I want to shit on men. But this time I'll stick up for the dudes. In the last 2 or 3 years, when I get a male client coming along, and like I said, I'm not talking about I'm 350 pounds. I'm gonna die if I don't do something. Yeah. Regular dude, skinny fat guy, and he's like, "Hey, dude, I want to be jacked." And I'll say 3 days a week, full body program, walking every day. Most of the time, guys go, "Really? That's all I need to do?" Okay, well, I'll commit to this.
That actually is the perfect way to work out.
Yeah,
if I had to give one blanket way to work out, it would definitely not be body part splits.
Yeah,
even though if that's what you like to do, that's fine.
Yeah,
but 3 total body workouts a week, and then low intensity cardio that you can sustain and won't break you down. And it'll help you recover.
Won't hurt you and
is safe.
Compromise recovery. Yeah. Yep. So I'll do that, and guys will go, okay. I mean, I'm so used to like 30 sets per body part, but I'll give it a shot. Every girl I train now, regardless of where they are in training history or their body, I'll go, let's start right now, 2 days a week, full body lifting, and then we're going to work up to but I want you staying active, count your steps. Let's get you moving. And then also we're going to up your protein a little bit. Okay. Can I do my booty band workout on top of this though? But also what about the walking lunges that I'd been doing? And I go, dude, because Instagram, like these girls, they see these impossible physiques.
Yep.
Regardless of, like I said, regardless of age, training history, they see these girls out there with impossible bodies that are doing these really, really stimulating booty workouts, and they're like, "I need to do that." Right?
It's great. Like girls will do an hour and a half of butt work in the gym. It's insane. It's like the chest thing for guys now.
Yeah.
It's like and they have like these rounded shoulders and no calves because they don't jump or do anything athletic. And they have this like big, beautiful, perfect booty. I'm like, it's just like the dude with the perfect chest and like no legs.
Well, and I go, a lot of those girls, some of them, the booty's amazing, and my boner always likes that. Like I'm never gonna my boner likes that. But some of these girls actually are head to toe, like they're amazing. Like,
but they dedicate. They're in there every day for 2 hours. Like that's not the other girls though.
Right. Yeah. And then I go like, you got to understand, like she gets a paycheck for that, man. Yeah. And I'm not taking it away. These female bikini competitors may be the only people besides, I guess, natural male bodybuilders. They may be the only people who exceed what IFBB Pro bodybuilders
you might be
do, because
right. Yeah, absolutely.
That world,
oh, it's insane. The few that I've dated in my life, it has been a miserable experience because they are consumed by that lifestyle.
Yeah, you have
consumed.
To be.
Like every minute of the day.
Their level, their what they compromise with their metabolic rates, with their testosterone levels, and from being women. Yeah, they have to go so hard. It's nuts, man. It's freaking nuts.
When I see a woman that's very, very in shape, usually it's a control thing. Like she needs some kind of control in her life, and that's how she expresses it healthily. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like she's totally in control of her body. And I'm not going to rag on that, but it's usually they feel like they're not able to control other aspects, or weren't maybe when they were younger.
Yeah.
Or like, you see a lot of women that like had bulimia and stuff like that, or anorexia, become figure competitors because they go from an unhealthy version of control. They still need that psychologically to a healthy version of control.
I did. I did. And to at least put it fully out there, I was always into lifting. I was a high school football player. I was never like, this kid's going to the pros athlete in any sport, but I was a 3-sport athlete, varsity most 4 years, and I was naturally a good athlete, right? And I started lifting weights because I wanted to be better, and I got into it. I really liked it, and everything. But I didn't start going ham. I didn't start counting macros, and I didn't start weighing my food till I got off drugs. Yeah, and that's when I took my one bad habit and replaced it with another. And I absolutely went, and I hope now I do think I'm in a healthier spot because it took me that time to kind of find that counterbalance. But I did the same thing, so I could easily see how a girl suffering bulimia or some form of eating disorder is like, but now I can be obsessive about this.
Because it's a personality trait.
People will go like this.
And I think instead of fighting personality traits, which are impossible to change, let's find a healthy outlet to that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say, like, people say, oh, you must be so disciplined. Here's this, I'm not super disciplined in other areas. I'm still trying to work on my discipline in other areas. Physical fitness is more of an obsession. It's a compulsion. Really. Yeah. It's like I have to have that in my life to balance myself out, to deal with like PTSD and anxiety, or else it'll go towards drugs, or it'll go towards being negative or doing other risky behavior. I've understood that based on my personality, my nature, I need something that brings me down.
Yeah. And look, isn't that, not to get again too super heady, but I mean, you seem to be a guy who's genuinely interested in that. But isn't that kind of the dichotomy of man, right? That's what makes us humans, is that the best cops were this close to being a criminal.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? True. And I always think of that scene in Full Metal Jacket where he's like, does that say born to kill, soldier? Yes, it does. Is that a peace sign around your neck? How the fuck can those two things, the dichotomy of man, sir? It's awesome. The duality of what's inside me.
So awesome. It's so true. Like, what's funny too is like people think that soldiers, like our soldiers, should like be regretful of killing and not like killing. Yeah. Now there's a difference between murder and killing. Sure. Some people are good at killing and they enjoy it, but they want it to be a righteous kill. They want to kill bad guys that need killing. And, my brother has been in special operations for 20 years now. He's retired and does it privately. I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of people he's killed. He talks. He's not traumatized by that. Right. He will talk to his friends about the good kills, the best ones, because he's a killer. He's been a killer since he was young, and he's taken that with a good moral compass, and now we use him as a tool to kill the people that need killing. That's a hard thing. The people that
Sorry, I got a weird.
That's all good. I think it should work now.
Check.
Is it?
Check.
There we go. Okay.
You know, like this country, like sometimes we need people to die. We need to kill people.
Yes.
And it's easy to say that we don't, but you're living a comfortable, good first world lifestyle because other people have killed people for you.
A lot of the woke, super extreme, and I'm not someone who, again, we're getting back to the identity. I don't really identify with, I'm not like a super right-wing guy. I would not consider myself
I'm
super liberal by any stretch of the imagination either. I just like feel the way I feel, you know, and I don't like when you have to kind of choose sides. But I will say that a lot of these like uber progressive folks that you see, especially, you know, friends of mine, and my wife's an actor, and a lot of her Hollywood friends back in LA, they were, and I grew up in LA, so I were kind of inundated in a little bit more of the, a little bit more left leaning world where that was just kind of the standard. And a lot of the extreme fringe when it comes to progressive stuff, I think that their heart is in the right place because they're humanitarians. They don't like violence at all. They don't like the idea, like, why can't we just all not have guns? And I go, I that on paper is probably the right way. But, and I grew up in a very pedestrian kind of affluent suburb. I didn't grow up in the hood, but drugs exposed me to that. And I was like, you're just someone who doesn't know. You don't know that there's way, way bad dudes out there. Like lots of dudes who really want to fuck shit up and don't
evil. There's
and
evil
have
in this
nothing
world.
to lose.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I think they go and they watch, you know, The Joker and they're like, that's a movie. I was like, no. There's fucking really evil
Psychopaths
people,
out there
you know,
that need to be in prison.
all over the globe.
Absolutely.
And your brother and you needed to fly to certain places and fuck shit up, and people,
people
law
call us,
enforcement
like,
need to fuck shit up.
Yeah,
you know,
people call us colonizers. It's like, dude, the dudes we killed are like blowing up kids and stuff. It's like, sorry that you didn't have to deal with that, but if you saw a dude that had just like planted a bomb and blown up 200 people trying to vote, you'd kill the dude too. I would hope you would kill him. Because if you don't, he's going to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many, and I won't even get into like the exact global situation, but I can't tell you how many times I have my feelings about something, and then I'll talk to Tim Kennedy or something, you know, someone who's been there, and they're like, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
well, that's how it goes. Okay, well, maybe.
Here's a general rule of thumb: both conservatives and liberals, okay, that identify as such. The things that they are the most passionate about and hate the most are the things that they're the furthest removed from.
Yes.
So the liberals that like hate guns and hate cops and don't think this needs to be this, they have never been in a situation where it's been like, if you don't shoot this person in the head, they will kill you.
Yeah.
They've never been in that situation. Yeah. You know, and the conservatives that hate immigrants or Muslims, they've never sat there and like had a Muslim save their life.
Yeah.
You know, like the people I knew that hated Muslims or black people most, they didn't see any. They didn't live with them. They didn't talk to them. The people that live next door to a Muslim don't hate them because that's your neighbor. And when you need your house watched, they're going to watch your house.
Yeah.
And it's like the things we hate and fear the most are the things we're the most removed from.
Yeah.
But instead of exposing ourselves to those things and like learning about them to see if we really should hate them, which we shouldn't hate anything other than evil, right? We just pull away in our own community, listen to what people tell us, throw away what we don't want to hear, and just identify. It's a sense of identity. It's
a great point. I think that's I never even really thought about it that way because I was really lucky. Pretty much every walk of life you can muster up, I was exposed to since a pretty young age. Like gay, lesbian, even trans to a certain extent, more so in like the drag queen world. I never knew like full trans until I was in my 30s, but like, you know, the drag queen, the gay, the black, the lesbian, the Jew, none of that was new to me, right? And all ethnic groups, and it wasn't like, it was never. I'm not like a woke guy who's like, I'm so evolved. I never cared. It never seemed to like register to me, and it was because I exposed. And there's that fella, I forgot. I think his name's Daryl. I forgot his last name. I always forget his last name. But his name's Daryl. He's been on Rogan's Experience. He's become famous, and he's a black dude, and he essentially goes around collecting Klansmen's hoods. Yeah. And he's gotten like a couple hundred now, and everyone always asks, well, how do you do that? He's like, I talk to him. 9 out of 10 of them go, I've never even talked with a black guy in my life.
I wish I could remember the name of this book. I read an amazing book where this journalist went and he lived with a hate group for like 2 years, right? And basically his conclusion at the end were most of them, except for the leader, who's usually a psychopath that preys on other people and just uses the hate for one group to control people. It's about control. Right. Most of the other people in there they're not very intelligent. They're scared. they need a sense of identity, and they use hating people that they don't know to bond with people in their community.
Get a crew.
You got a crew. And like hate groups usually aren't hate. It's like they need a love for their group. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's a sad thing. So when you talk to a Nazi or somebody like that, if you can expose them to real people of like this guy is doing,
Yeah.
you know, and they see them as people, like the first thing you got to do as a cult leader is dehumanize your enemy.
Yeah.
They're not these complicated people that might be doing something wrong or whatever, but they're humans at heart. You know, they have to be completely evil and dehumanized first.
And I think like in both the darker sense and in the lighter sense too, is that one of the amazing luxuries of my job was that I got never any exposure to celebrities at all levels, from Julia Roberts down to like reality star, right? And you so quickly, 100% of the time, when the mic or the camera turns off, you're like, oh, you're a fucking person.
You're a real person.
You're like a human.
It's
and
crazy,
like, you
right?
know, like I hear her on the phone with her kid. It's like, no, you can't put that in your mouth. No. Okay, come on. Is grandma around? And you're like,
Yeah,
oh, wait,
they have their issues, right?
you're a fucking person. Like you're a human being. This is amazing.
I'm walking around like trying to pick up my dog poo and like the apartment complex and stuff. Like, and you know, I had a celebrity DM me, or I DM'd him. They followed me. I DM'd him saying thank you. That I was a fan. And the dude just told me about the injury he had suffered and how lonely and hard it was and he's a famous celebrity, right? And it's like, man, this dude is suffering right now. You know, like he feels isolated, you know, and you can think about you celebrity, and you're surrounded by people and you've never been more lonely.
Yeah.
You know, and how isolating a debilitating injury is. I don't care if you have $20 billion. It's an isolating thing.
Getting back to that thing about the communal aspect of being a human, I always tell people like drugs and alcohol destroyed my life. I was suicide. I had no desire to go on living, and yet loneliness is the worst.
The worst.
Way worse than pills, powder.
You know what's worse
and booze.
than the worst form of loneliness too is when you're surrounded by people and you're lonely, rather than just being isolated geographically.
Yes,
is when you're isolated emotionally.
I for the 6-8 months that I was a New Yorker, I was stung by that. Now, granted, I was really active in my addiction, so that certainly played a role. But when you're lonely, super lonely, and in a sea of humans walking by you, like it's worse. It's way worse.
I live in Chicago, and I remember feeling that way. And then also my friends in San Diego, like they were party friends. They had never been there with me for anything hard.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started to really think about what friendship was. Like you need some kind of trial that you have to go through together.
Yeah.
To know that person's going to be there for you when it would be more convenient for them not to, when it would maybe hurt their reputation or they have to give up something to be there for you. Because unless a person's done that, unless they sat down with you and suffered with you or been with you when it would be embarrassing for them to be with you, right?
Yeah.
Because you've done something bad. That's not your friend. That's just a dude you hang out with.
I wonder if you can synthesize that, because as a man has served his country, you kind of get, pardon the pun, but you get a boot camp in suffering together.
Yes,
and
it's
you
easy
build
to have really close
camaraderie, right? I wonder if you're, an accountant that lives in East Austin, is there ways you can create that?
That's a great question, and I hope we find a way.
Because I was really lucky. I grew up, my closest friends are guys I went to kindergarten with, and all the way through. I still have a very close bond with them. But I've also never really found it that difficult to like meet people and feel comfortable around them. But nowadays with Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, I wonder, because certainly I've seen, when I was 19, I would walk over broken glass to go find chicks.
Yeah.
Brick wall, break it through
3 hours to
and my feet over broken glass.
3 hours to touch a boob. Driving the car 3 hours to touch a boob.
Sit in Abu Ghraib for a week if there was a promise of poop.
I always talk about how much I would go through back in the day to be with a girl, and now it's like us.
And I think when you have HD porn,
yes,
at your fingertips,
it's
dating
toxic.
website, like I don't see, like I'll talk to 21 or college age boys, and they're like, yeah, well, I mean, I like girls and all, but whatever, I got stuff, and I'm like, ooh,
bro,
is that going to be the same with your friends too?
Yeah. So there's a dude that works at a convenience store, a young kid. He's into working out, and he started asking me about steroids, and I start to warn him. I was like, dude, these are the risks, without saying, hey, don't take it, because then they'll just shut down, right? I was like, take it if you want, but these are all the risks, right? And it's like, one of them you might not be able to kids. And he straight up said, without even feeling too sad for himself, well, it's so hard to meet women nowadays that I just don't think that's going to be an issue anyway. And I'm like, holy shit, bro, you're 19.
And was he a fucking disgusting?
No, he's just a kid, man.
He's like normal. And I think a lot of dudes feel that way.
It's crazy.
And
it's also social media, man, because
I stuck up for guys earlier. I mean, I stuck up for girls earlier.
Yeah.
Now it's time to turn the table. I'm gonna shit. I do think that Instagram and OnlyFans and the dating websites have given very average girls this sense that they're premium.
That's true.
And so now all girls go around treating guys who would probably treat them really well like fucking shit because they think they're gonna get the Brad Pitt.
Yeah, they've done studies like I don't. It's on TikTok or something. I don't even know. They go around and they ask the girls what kind of guy they're gonna need.
Yeah,
6 foot, makes 6 figures, lean, full head of hair, not obese or whatever, and then they calculate it. It's like you have a 0.004% chance.
Yeah,
and this girl's like a 4.
And believe me, if Alessandra Ambrosio in her peak said that, I'd be like, well, she'll find Tom Brady one day. I get it. But now, like believe me, I'm not. This is not like insult girl day. But like when I grew up with girls that were 6s and 5s, they didn't think that way. They're like, I want to find a guy who treats me really well.
Yeah,
and makes me a better
and that's
person.
And there's never a conversation about the character of the man you want to be with.
Yeah,
they never even bring it up.
No,
like I want a guy that's will be a good father. I want a guy that won't cheat on me, that I can depend on. They just assume that. And
also, I don't know if those girls. Maybe it comes with age. I don't know if those girls understand the guys that are like that have that level of option. They're not going to settle down with you.
No,
like that's.
It's like, well, here's another thing. Without getting people hit me, like, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah,
like it's a what do you call it? It's an economy.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off, right? So you want this guy that's a 10 apparently that makes $1 million. What are you bringing to the table? Yeah. Let's even say you're hot. Let's say you're a 10. What else? Are you educated? Are you a good conversationalist? Do you have a skill? Are you driven? Are you a good mom? Can you cook?
Yeah.
Like, believe it or not, cooking's still kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys should be able to cook too. It's not just women, but you should have skills. Can you change oil in a car?
Yeah.
Like, what do you bring to the table other than fake boobs and a $400 haircut? It's like they don't ever think about what they bring to that relationship.
You didn't mention the ass because that changes everything for me. That really will change the scales.
Do you know what I mean though? It's like you're trying to sell something, but you don't have anything to sell yourself. Like,
no, it's true, and I think that in image driven world, it's very hard to look beyond that. When I was in high school, you had to literally be a model or a celebrity to have someone judge a picture of you.
Yes.
To have someone take a picture and then have them go,
isn't that a weird thought, man?
Now all humans deal with that. Yeah, they deal with that.
Like 20 million people see my face, and I'm just some random Instagram dude.
It's crazy.
It's when I think about it, that makes me very uncomfortable, right? But it's also just like dudes don't know how to talk to chicks anymore because it's all internet porn. It's like porn. Porn is horrible, bro. Honestly, and it's just like they don't talk to anybody.
Dude, he runs a business. He has a. I don't know. I've talked into microphones for a living and had blue collar jobs. So I've never tried to start my own business. I don't. It's for him to talk to any man under 30. It's like I'm done. I can't understand because, and I'm not shitting on dudes. I'm not. What I'm saying is that you grew up in a world where I had to, on every level. Okay, do you understand? If I had a crush on a girl, I couldn't go, hey, what are you doing? I had to go high school directory.
Talk to the parents first.
Hello, Mr. Woods.
Yes, get their dad
Hello,
first.
Mr. Woods. It's Michael Catherwood. Would it be possible for me to talk to Andrea if she's home today?
And the dad's like, who are you?
Who's this? What? Mike Catherwood? What?
That's so true, man. You always have to get through the. No, sometimes you call the mom, and the mom gives the phone to the dad, and then the dad will give the phone to the daughter. It's like, oh my god! Like,
but that you had to do that.
Yeah, you had to.
You had to do that, and you had to learn to. I had to when I applied for jobs when I worked at gas stations and shit when I was 15. I had to go to that gas station and be like, "Are you guys hiring?" And they're like, "Yes, fill this out." And then I came back. I remember when I started working at K-Rock, I wore a suit. Kevin and Bean laughed at me so fucking. They're like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Overdress, right?
I was like, "Well, I don't know. I was trying to get a job."
So good. So we run a speed training business, and it's very hard to find people. Right? We go through hundreds of resumes, and these dudes are like some Ivy League educated, work with pro teams, And two things, written word and oral word, right? They can't write a cover letter.
Yeah.
I don't care what it says on your resume, who you've worked with. If your cover letter sucks,
Yes.
either you didn't put effort in it or you can't convey information properly.
You're not-
and being a
you're
trainer is about
clearly not
conveying
reading
information.
enough,
Yeah.
right?
And then also, so let's say they get the interview and then they can't talk. It's like, bro, your job is to not to know things, it's to teach things.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're all young guys, like in their early to mid 20s, you know, some early 30s, but they can't communicate. And we have to go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not worth anything in this world because robots and AI is taking over everything.
Yeah.
Unless you can be human, communicate, make people laugh, teach things, make people feel, you're not valuable. I'm sorry to tell you this. You have to, whatever you're good at, you have to layer communication on top of that.
Yeah.
You know, if I was in the fitness,
Unless you have like 12-inch plus cock.
Yeah.
Right? Like, anything over 12 inches, he's like, listen, you'll be working forever.
you got a job, kid.
It may be rough when you get older, but you'll have a job.
You got a job, kid. But it's like, unless you can communicate, you can be I could be the best trainer in the world, but if I can't communicate what I know to kids,
Yeah.
if I can't get them to buy in or assure their parents that verbally and in the written word that I'm safe for their kid, I'd be worthless as a
No,
trainer.
that's a really good point. And I know you're a busy guy. We'll wrap this up, but I want to ask you two things that we can end on. How much of your success is because there's a lot of guys and gals with great content, and a lot of guys and gals who are really sharp in the fitness and performance world. A lot of guys and gals.
Yeah, I love it.
How much of it is just being able to connect with people? And the other thing too I wanted to talk about was, because I deal with it, and I'm much less impressive physically with clothes on than you. I mean, I'm 5'10", and I don't.
You got way better hair, bro.
I'm not gonna lie.
Way
That's
better.
true. That I'm not gonna debate.
Pretty
that.
handsome dude. I got some skin issues.
But
cool,
but what I mean is like you. We went to the opening of the new Iron. What's it? House of Gains.
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I saw you there.
And
I was gonna say hi, yeah.
I saw it and I was like, geez, look at the fucking, and that's a
Oh, my God.
gym. You know, like you're a very impressive person. To see.
There's some
right?
big dudes there, man. Like big chicks.
There were
too.
big dudes and big chicks. Yes, there were. So I wonder, like, how much of that, because like I said, there's a lot of big guys, a lot of guys who know what they're doing. How much of it is just closing that barrier with actually reaching out and being able to connect with people, and making them feel comfortable to connect with you?
I don't know, man. Maybe all of it. Because honestly, like if I didn't have big muscles, people probably wouldn't even stop on the reel. Let's be honest, you know. But if they stopped on the reel and I had nothing to say, there are dudes out there with way better physiques than me. There are models that are ripped, you know, and they can get more without having to be connect with people, right? I feel like it has to be a connection.
But they can get more, sure. And same with me. Like people, I feel like I add something in that I can be genuinely entertaining on top of sincerely knowing what I'm talking about, right? In fitness and health. At least competent, you know, in that realm. But there's going to be the 300 million engagement with every post people that are just amazing looking.
Yeah.
I wonder though, like that can't last. But if you're charismatic and smart and can connect, like that can, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't fake that. Like I genuinely care for people. Like I started Instagram not to show off what I can do. It's to try to connect with people, like and like try to instill in people that there's hope. Like if I'm kind of all over the place on my Instagram, man. Like, but if there's one common theme, it's like dudes that are aging, like it's not over. Like you can do this, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm not something special. Like they think I'm some kind of tough dude. I'm not, man. I deal with the same stuff you do. I've had the same injuries. I get lazy. It's about a way to like simplify things, make things attainable, break things down into easy and doable tasks. Like I want to help people not feel so helpless.
I think that's genuinely beautiful. I'm not saying that to be corny or blow smoke. I think that motive is so pure and beautiful, and it's meaningful, man. That really, you will help people. You will help people. I
think I have a chance to, man.
The other thing I want to say, and to further that, is that you and we do eat pizza and cake from here to time. Yeah,
I had a burger 30 minutes before I came here, bro. I was starving, dude. I had a P. Terry's double cheeseburger with bacon on it.
And I think,
full disclosure.
I think there's this notion that the people see it almost like with celebrity, they don't think it's a real human.
Yeah.
They see certain physiques or certain levels of performance, and they're like, well, that's not a normal person like me. And you mentioned earlier, you and I both, we mentioned like, yeah, I do monitor what I eat for the most part, but I'm I will eat birthday cake on this
absolutely.
week. You know, I will fuck it up.
Well, that's another thing, like without going too over, it's like, you know, you have more metabolic flexibility when you have a lot of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a long history of weightlifting and you carry more muscle, you can get away with more.
Yeah.
So I need 5,000 calories a day, right? More or less. If I eat a 400 calorie burger, it's not going to kill me.
Yeah.
But if you eat 1,000 calories a day, that 400 calorie burger is 40% of your diet. You know, that was like 8% of my diet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what they don't see.
That's the other thing they don't see for sure. And you had talked about it. It doesn't take that much. You don't have to live in the gym.
No.
And I try to hammer that home to people all the time. And I would just like to, if you could, give me the Reader's Digest version of what you, because I tell people, if you were to stay active every day and then make 3 days a week, you know, good 30 to 45 minutes of concerted effort, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And I would be curious to hear like your take on that.
You know, how long you spend in the gym is personal preference and your lifestyle. Like how much time do you have to invest, right? As little as 3 hours a week, probably. You know, like Tim Ferriss' 4 hour workout, like 4 hours a week of working out is more than enough.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I do the flows and things is to condense the workout. You know, do more than one thing with one exercise you can do quickly, not do more sets than you need to, not do too much fluff work that's not going to pay off, is like making it more efficient for people. And honestly, yeah, you don't need to lift weights every day. Like you don't.
Yeah.
Like Tim Ferriss, like in his book, man, he had great research that a couple very intense sets twice a week is enough stimulus to like grow a muscle.
Yeah.
You know, I have clients that literally come in twice a week and do 2 total body workouts a week and they make gains.
Yeah. And I had, you know, when I was really heavy into grappling, especially where it was just my energy systems were getting so taxed from that. I trained twice a week lifting weights, and people they wouldn't believe me. They're like,
because it's so ingrained for bodybuilders.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it doesn't. But here's the thing, though. There's a catch. If you're going to do that, if you're going to rely on a couple sets a week to make gains or keep gains while you train, people don't understand the intensity that's required for that set. And I'll take dudes through it. Right. Yeah. It can't just be fluff sets. There's a couple warm up sets in there, and that set is the most intense thing they've ever done in their life.
Yeah, and they genuinely don't understand.
They don't.
Now, what's your take? I know I told you I'd let you go, but
I got all day,
because I'm very interested in this because I try to impart that too. But I also started to. This is one area where I've changed my tune on it a little bit. Is that you and I? Let's say I was like, you know what? I'm having a lot of problems with my mobility and my shoulders are fucking me up. Can you take me under your wing? Give me a drink. You could take me to the gym and go fucking Dorian Yates on my ass, and I'd
pointless.
be good.
Yeah,
I'd be good though. I mean, I could do it.
Yes, yeah,
you know, because and I know exactly where to keep that pressure and the mechanical tension in the right spot. And when I tell people you don't have to train that hard, but there needs to be intensity. But then I was like, man, this guy's never lifted weights. Where you know what I'm saying? There should be some buffer.
So here's my real quick on that is let's break down the factors of intensity. There's load, there's movement speed, there's complexity. And there's rep range, the range of motion. Okay, those are the factors, right? With somebody that's new, you don't ever do all those together.
Yeah.
So if it's intense, it'll be a very intense concentric on a machine with no eccentric, let's say, or a partial range of motion intensity, or a lot of time under tension with slow movement speed, or if it's
an isometric, maybe.
An isometrics. Isometrics are fantastic.
Yeah.
Highly underrated. So you just don't combine all the elements of intensity together. No more than 2 at any given time. It's a general thumb with people that aren't advanced lifters.
Okay. All right.
So you break them down.
I think that's a really wise and practical way to break it down. Yeah. Again, it's at Judd Lienhard on Instagram. That's a great way to find him. And then there's those link tree there to everything going on here. A very smart man. I hope you can piece that together from our conversation. I genuinely enjoyed talking to you, man, and I appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, good talk. It was great, brother.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, great time.